Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is that backing track. Now that backing track is called Sultry and Steamy. Now I think it's meant to be called Sultry and Steamy because that kind of makes more sense. Sultry isn't actually a word. But this is written by a very talented man called Peter Honoré. I think he's Danish. That's presumably why they call him Danish Pete. Or it could just be some reference to, you know, pasties or something. Anyway, so this is basically done by Andertons. The good people at Andertons, obviously everyone knows, is a guitar shop that do loads and loads of videos. So I'm basically leeching onto the back of them and doing a video about their video, or at least about the backing track that was in their video. Now the reason I wanted to do this is because in that solo that I've just played there, there's potentially some information that you can use to sort of structure your solos. Now that was just a live take, obviously it wasn't necessarily perfect, I'm just kind of improvising, but I did try, and I think there's about 4 times round there, there's sort of a verse section and a chorus section, and I sort of tried to get in some of the changes there, and I'll obviously go a bit mad towards the end with introducing say like an overdrive and then a delay and boosting up the pedals and the sound from the guitar in that way. Now, where we start with this kind of thing, so it's essentially a blues which with a little bit of an extra spice in there, because he introduces a C major 7 chord, which is quite cool. And it goes to A minor 7. So I think the chord sequence is something like E minor. B7, and then in the chorusy section it goes C major 7, A minor 7, B7. So it just repeats that repeats each section twice, and then that's one whole section, and there's 4 of those. Hopefully that makes sense. It's about 4 minutes long, as you can hear. So, again, all these videos that I do, it depends at what level you're at. So you perhaps might sort of know pretty much what I'm doing, and there may be some little technique there that I've done, and you go, all right, I'll steal that. Basically, I always say it doesn't really matter what level you're at. If you think you're a very advanced guitarist, you can see a guitarist who's possibly just starting out, but they might just have little hints and tips that you hadn't thought of, you hadn't come across before, and that can be useful in just adding to your arsenal, really. So the thing starts off. If you're not so advanced and you're wondering how on earth to solo over something like this, essentially you need to start off with a minor pentatonic scale. And you can explain the minor pentatonic scale in 10 seconds. If you start on an open string, you just press all the frets where the dots are, apart from the last one where you press 1 fret above. So it's open, dot, 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 1 above, and that's your octave there. That's simply it. That's on one string, so obviously you can transfer that over to other strings and work out your fingerings. I always think scales are a bit like a Sudoku. So Sudoku is like a 9 by 9 square, and if that's all filled in, if you had the answer, you couldn't possibly memorise that. It's 81 different numbers in a grid. You couldn't do that. But what Sudoku does, you just have a few different numbers, and then after a period of time, you work out where they all go. And in that way, to me, learning makes a lot more sense. So if you just start off with the basic information, work it out for yourself, it's going to be a lot more memorable. So we'll just go over the pentatonic scale again. I'm going to use the A string this time. So remember the dot, 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 1 above the dot and back there. So the normal way of fingering that would be to use 3 different strings. And the major pentatonic, you just start on the second note of that scale. So instead of the open string, it would be the second note. 1 above. That's the major pentatonic. So that's basically it. So over this jam track, it starts with I'll just try. If I just do the chords here. E minor pentatonic. And I'll try not to do any bends or anything. So you can see I'm moving around the fretboard there. And it should just come. I think this is where people talk about. The cage system, where you kind of play. You know the 5 different shapes, and then you can transfer that all around the fretboard. So it is important to sort of know an E minor pentatonic. Let's say on. Here. Where else can we play it? Here. And there's notes. There's notes all over the fretboard that are in the E minor pentatonic. And there's certain different things you can do with those notes. So I'm putting in some passing tones there, we'll get to that in a second. So that's the thing that you can sort of try and practice. You just need to visualise all the shapes. Down there, up here. That's like a secondary shape here that doesn't use the open strings. Okay, so the first step to soloing over this piece is to know your E minor pentatonics. That's basically 5 notes per octave. If you know that, you can do. Let's just do a bit of the backing track. Well, yeah, just do a bit of the backing track. So hopefully that makes sense so far. E minor pentatonic is your basis. Now, what I would also like to do is, the one thing I keep coming up with is, keep talking about, is fractions of chords that are sort of built into the pentatonic. So, like, instead of going, play 2 notes, 2 strings at the same. Okay, so I'm just sort of barring there. You're doing a sort of you're basically playing a pentatonic, but you're just keeping that bar there. Instantly, that sounds cool because you're getting some sort of, you know, bluesy dyads. Okay, it's just as simple as that. So if you've mastered your pentatonic, just put your finger. So instead of going, you can do. You see the difference there, and it's just because you've got 2 notes ringing, and that gives it a bit more tension instead of just 1 note playing at the same time, which can sound a bit thin. There's place for everything, of course. Or you can do with open strings. So obviously we know that a lot with E minor or E minor 7th, it's most of the open strings on the guitar. So you could just play instead of you do. See? So we're just letting the open strings ring because you can do that with the E minor. Now I personally think that sound, there's too much difference, there's not enough tension there. Just playing it with the bar up the top, it to me sounds better. So there you are, that's the next stage. So try and play sort of a bar where if you've got the E minor bar like that, just play the solo but keep the bar in place. And that jazzes things up even more. Okay, tip number 2. It'll be lunchtime soon. I think the next stage is to then think about what we call passing notes, which are so we've taken the pentatonic and we've started off with 5 notes out of the octave, but really most scales are 8 notes. So there's some notes in between that you can use. Now, I suppose it is important to know what these are. We're talking about the second. When people talk about seconds and fifths and stuff like that, it means that if you're counting up in an 8-note scale, it's the second note you come to and the 5th note you come to. So the minor scale. So minor pentatonic is, and then back to the root. So the minor scale, there's obviously lots of different minor scales, so I'm just going to play one time. So that's the one that I've chosen to use there. So you've got a passing note, the second note of the scale. So instead of going, go. So you're kind of climbing up to that minor note using the. Also, that's a passing note. So you go that kind of thing. Well, there's also the blue note, which is a flattened 5th, which in E, that's the 5th note. So you flatten that one. That's the classic blue note. So you can combine the blue note with that little bar thing I was telling you about. So once you've, I know I'm going quickly here, but really this is all you need to know to jazz up all your solos, and we'll get on to, we'll keep going. There's lots of different bits you can do and combine them all together. So the other thing you can do is bend onto those. So if we're talking, if you add in the blue note, that's the blue note, but you can just bend into that. So you're just bending around those two alternate passing notes. One other one that you can use is the major third. Now, that's an E minor. That's E major, and it all revolves around changing that note there. So you can play around with that with a little bend on the third, because it just has a bit more tension. Because if your piece is in minor, hinting at a majorness there, which is quite cool. It's kind of dissonant. It's kind of dissonant, but if you don't make too much of it, if you use it sparingly, it's quite cool. But you don't want to be playing E major really too much over an E minor, certainly not the chord anyway. So you just hint at that. So hopefully that makes sense. You've got, that's the second. Flat and fifth, that's important in the blues. It's the sort of augmented fifth. So all those notes, I mean really you can play any, eventually it's the point where you can play any note if you know kind of where to put it. There's tricky ones like the flattened second. I'll show you what the hardest note to weave into it there, because there's only one semitone above the root. But you can see that fitted there, I think it worked. So yeah. Now then. So we've done pentatonics. We've done pentatonics with sort of easy double stops. We've done passing notes. Now, what you might then think about is more concentrating just on the passing notes, or the altered notes, or whatever you want to call them. So the second. That's like a 6th, 7th, and 9th, so the 9th, 6th, and 7th, and that kind of thing. And then, if you can try and play a solo that doesn't actually use the conventional notes of the pentatonic, so it's almost like a mirror pentatonic. So instead of going, you go. Hang on, I've set a trap for myself there. There's a gap in the middle. I'll see if I can explain it better with. piece there. Fair enough, obviously it starts to sound a bit more discordant and dissonant, but I didn't hit, I certainly didn't hit the root note, and I don't believe I hit the fifth either. So you're kind of doing, if you've got a chord, the sort of altered chord, which you sound like, you are playing a fifth there, or you could do the third. Yeah, so. And that's kind of knocking on the door of jazz, really, where they love to come up with different versions of the chords. So instead of playing just a straight sort of E minor, you start to play around with it. So you play E minor 7, E minor 6, E minor sort of add 9, that kind of thing. And then you sort of lose the root altogether, and you can do this kind of thing. So if the you've obviously got the root notes in the backing, but I'm playing an E minor chord which is like this. I don't believe that contains any E at all. You know, if you had enough E, just play something like that, and then if you're just playing without the loop, there you go. So I haven't practiced this one. So that was like a B. Yeah, so the B's trickier. It's just should be maybe doing a ninth. Anyway. So and that last bit is probably the hardest bit to kind of grasp. But I suppose what I'm saying is we've gone from, so just to recap then, we've gone from pentatonic, which hopefully everyone's grasped. 5 notes, 5 sort of conventional notes out of the scale, and then you fill in the blanks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's an octave. We call it an octatonic. How long have we got? 5 minutes. And then you start to avoid the sort of fifths and roots and things. That's kind of in there. Sounds like D. That's like D major. Actually, I wasn't expecting that to happen, but when you work it out, that sounds like a D. If you play a D major pentatonic over an E minor, you're actually going and getting the altered notes there. I should probably have known that. Does that make? I don't know if it makes sense. You'll have to put some comments in the comments if you want me to explain it a bit better. But I suppose what I'm taking you through is the approach of just. So you hear a lot of people on forums and stuff like that going, "Oh, I'm stuck in a rut with my pentatonics." So hopefully, in a way that has tried to explain how you can take the pentatonic, you can add some notes, and then you've got more notes, and you kind of take away the originals, and you're left with the weird sounding ones, which is what everyone kind of aspires to. Everyone aspires to, oh, that's really cool and jazzy, what's that chord? What's that chord? you're doing is you're trying to avoid the root notes. You're trying to put in the seconds, the sevenths, and the ninths, and the minor thirds, and that kind of thing. And then avoid the roots and the fifths, which is the sort of bog standard pentatonic notes that you might always sort of feel as if you're sort of stuck in a rut with. And I think that is a good approach. And then you start to need to learn a bit more about, I'd hesitate to say jazz theory, or jazz concept, I would say, is probably more. And that is the jazz concept, really, to sort of change the notes. So you still have a theoretical link to the E minor chord, but you're not actually playing an E minor or an A minor, because you're not really you're not playing an E at all. See? So the only thing that gives it that context is that root note. The other thing is, and so you need to build that all into a concept of a solo. So you start off. Should we play it? We'll play it again. What I was going to say was, you start off. I'll start off with very, very basic pentatonic. I'll try and do no bending, just straight notes. Then I'll add in the bends and the double stops. Then we might go for some altered notes, and then we'll try and go to the point where we're not playing the root notes at all and see where we get to, and then we'll try and add in some chords and arpeggios and stuff towards the end as well. So that's the idea. Let's have a crack at this then. Here we are. Landing on the E if you can do. And this is where it changes to a C, just to play a C. Then E minor. Then E minor. To be, put the delay on. All those bars. Arpeggio. Oh. Oops. Right, so I'm going to put some overdrive. I'm going to try some alternate notes. Not the root note. Okay. Okay, so I know I'm sort of showing off there a little bit, but that is how I would play it, and I've tried to explain how you can take it from basic pentatonic. So you can see every section in there, I'll just go over it again, every section in there, the first was different and more advanced. So the first section was just basic pentatonic notes, no deviations, no bends, just 5 notes per octave, and it sounds nice and bluesy, you know. Then you add in some of your double stops and your bends, still using your pentatonic, no clever notes, and then you start to sound like sort of more Gilmore and Claptony, and you know, you've got a little bit more technique, which sounds really cool. And then if you want to take it that step further, you start thinking about these kind of notes, which are outside the pentatonic. The second, the flat and fifth, which is the blue note, the romantic fifth, flat and second, and ninth, and seventh, stuff like that. And then you try and deliberately avoid landing back on the E. And that just keeps tension. So you get, so this chord I was playing on. So if you've got a, and on the second or the ninth, whatever you want to call it, and that keeps that tension because everyone you just think, oh, I just want to go back to, oh, you know, but it's all about tension. So if you go. So you can build a whole idea around that F. So it's F sharp is the second of E minor. And that's the 6th or 13th or whatever you call it. So there. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, I'd like some feedback. If anyone's watching this and goes, oh, I kind of was with you halfway, and then can you explain that bit again? But you know, better. I could probably do another video in more specific section. But that, to me, is the principle of soloing over something like this. And just as a little PS, now I was wondering whether to mention this or not, but I will do, because there is a video, an Andertons video, so basically they're doing like free guitar lessons, like what I'm doing, so it's brilliant for them to do that, because there's a load of information out there for guitarists to learn how to play the guitar for free. Peter was saying that it's about relative majors and minors, so because he goes to the C and then the A minor 7th. Now, C and A minor 7th are basically the same chord, except with the C there's a C in the bass, and with an A minor 7th there's an A minor 7th in the bass. And he was saying you go down 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which I never really think about it. I think about it going down 3, because if you take 3 steps forward, you don't count the step that you're on and then go 1, 2. You know, if you take 3 steps forward, you don't go, well, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. You go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 4 steps forward. If you want to take 3 steps forward, you go 1, 2, 3, and that's what I do. So from C, the relative minor of C major is E minor. So you go 3 down. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3 down. C, A. So it's the same thing. Relative minors. When we talked about the major and minor pentatonic, you're just starting on different notes. So it's 3 frets up for the major. So minor. Okay, just wanted to add that bit in. So thank you very much for watching. Hopefully that's made some sense. And yeah, comment below if you have anything that you want me to kind of clarify, or if you think it's all a load of rubbish and I should be doing better. You know, fair enough. Let me know that as well, what I should be doing better. That's very kind. Thank you very much. I'll see you later.